The Zervani warship came down from the sky like a dark cloud of death. It was huge. It was black. It made no sound as it moved through the orange clouds of Kathos Prime. Inside the ship, Commander Veltrix stood with his 4 arms crossed over his chest. He was 9 feet tall. His body was covered in hard armor that grew from his own skin. His eyes were large and made of many small parts, like the eyes of an insect. He could see in complete darkness. He could see heat. He could see fear. And right now, he could see something very funny. "Look at the screen," he said to his second in command, a warrior named Nizek. "Tell me what you see." Nizek moved closer to the large viewing screen. His mandibles clicked together as he studied the image. A small shuttle was coming toward their landing zone. It was old. It was slow. It looked like something a child would build from spare parts. "It is a human ship," Nizek said. "One small human ship." "Yes," Veltrix replied. "And do you know how many humans are inside that ship?" "How many?" "1." Nizek made a sound that was like laughing. Among the Zervani, this sound came from deep in the throat and made the mandibles shake. "1 human? They send 1 human to meet the conquerors of 47 worlds? Are they making a joke?" Veltrix did not answer right away. He watched the small shuttle get closer and closer. The humans were a strange species. They had no claws. They had no armor on their bodies. They had no venom. They could not see in the dark. They broke easily. They died easily. And yet when the Zervani had first contacted them, they had refused to surrender. They had refused. No species had ever refused the Zervani. Not the Vethrani, who had ruled 1,000 worlds. Not the Krix, who had armies of billions. Not the Morvax, who could live for 10,000 years. All of them had knelt before the Zervani. All of them had accepted their place as servants and slaves, but the humans had said no. "Prepare the welcome party," Veltrix said. "I want 200 warriors in the landing zone. Full armor, full weapons. Let this human see what he faces." The shuttle landed with a soft bump on the stone ground. Smoke came from its engines. The door opened slowly, and a single figure stepped out into the orange light of the alien. His name was Danny Cole. He was 34 years old. He stood 5 feet and 10 inches tall. His hair was brown and cut short. He wore a simple uniform with no medals and no decorations. He carried no weapons that anyone could see. He looked at the 200 Zervani warriors standing in a circle around him, and his face showed no emotion at all. The warriors were massive. Each one stood at least 8 feet tall. Their armor was black and covered with sharp edges. Their weapons hummed with energy. Their eyes glowed red in the dim light. They looked like monsters from a nightmare, and they were laughing. The clicking, hissing sound of Zervani laughter filled the landing zone. 200 warriors, laughing at the small human who stood alone in their midst. Danny Cole did not react. He simply stood there with his hands at his sides and waited. Commander Veltrix walked through the circle of warriors. They parted for him like water parts for a stone. He stopped in front of Danny and looked down at the human. The size difference was almost comical. Veltrix could have crushed this creature with one hand. He could have torn him apart with his claws. He could have ended his life in 100 different ways. "Look who is here to conquer us," Veltrix announced in a loud voice. The warriors laughed again. The sound was like thunder rolling across the stone buildings of the landing zone. Danny looked up at the massive alien commander. His eyes were calm. His breathing was steady. He did not blink. "I am not here to conquer you," he said. His voice was quiet but clear. "I am here to talk." "Talk?" Veltrix leaned down until his face was close to Danny's. His breath smelled like metal and blood. "What could you possibly have to say that would interest me, little human? Your world has already been marked for harvest. Your cities have already been assigned to my generals. Your people have already been counted and sorted for the slave markets. What words could change any of this? Words can change everything, Danny said. That is something my species learned a long time ago. Nizek stepped forward. He was almost as large as Veltrix, and his armor was covered with the marks of many battles. Commander, why do we waste time with this creature? Let me kill him now. We can send his body back to Earth as a message. Veltrix held up one of his 4 hands. No, not yet. I want to understand something first. He looked at Danny again. Your leaders knew what we are. They knew what we have done to other species. They knew that we have never lost a war. And yet they sent you here alone. Why? Danny was silent for a moment. Then he spoke. They sent me because I volunteered. You volunteered to die? I volunteered to deliver a message. Veltrix made the Zorvani laughing sound again. And what message could be worth your life, little human? Danny looked around at the warriors surrounding him. He looked at their weapons. He looked at their armor. He looked at their glowing red eyes. Then he looked back at Veltrix. The message is simple, Danny said. You have one chance to leave our space. One chance to turn your ships around and go back where you came from. One chance to pretend you never heard of Earth. If you take this chance, you will live. If you do not take this chance, you will learn why humanity has survived for so long on a world that tried to kill us every single day. The laughter stopped. For a long moment, there was no sound at all. The Zorvani warriors stared at the small human who had just threatened the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Then the laughter started again, louder than before. Veltrix reached out and grabbed Danny by the front of his uniform. He lifted the human off the ground with one hand, bringing him up to eye level. You are either very brave or very stupid, Veltrix said. I have not decided which, but I will enjoy finding out. He threw Danny to the ground. Danny hit the stone hard, but did not cry out. He simply got back to his feet and brushed the dust from his uniform. Take him to the holding cells, Veltrix ordered. Do not kill him, not yet. I want to know more about this message. I want to know what makes a human volunteer to die. 2. Warriors grabbed Danny by the arms and started to drag him away. Danny did not resist. He did not fight. He simply walked between them, calm and quiet. But as he passed Nizek, he looked up at the massive warrior and smiled. It was a small smile, a quiet smile. But there was something in that smile that made Nizek feel cold for the first time in his very long life. He did not understand why. The human was weak. The human was alone. The human would soon be dead. And yet, something about that smile felt like a warning. The holding cells of the Zorvani were not built for comfort. They were built for fear. The walls were black stone. The floor was cold metal. The only light came from a dim red glow in the ceiling. There was no bed. There was no water. There was nothing but darkness and silence. Danny Cole sat in the corner of his cell with his back against the wall. He had been there for 6 hours. He had not slept. He had not asked for food or water. He had simply sat there, waiting, thinking, watching the energy barrier that kept him trapped inside. The barrier hummed with power. It was strong enough to kill a Zorvani warrior if he walked through it. It was more than strong enough to stop a human. But Danny did not try to escape. He did not need to escape. He just needed to wait. Outside his cell, guards walked back and forth. They were young warriors, still learning the ways of war. They had been chosen for this duty because it was considered easy. Watch the human. Make sure he does not die before the commander is ready to question him. Simple work for simple soldiers. But they kept looking at Danny through the barrier. They kept watching him sit there in the darkness, calm and still, like he was waiting for something they could not see. One of the guards was named Threx. He was young, only 90 years old, which was very young for a Zolvani. He had not yet fought in a real battle. He had not yet killed an enemy. He was curious about the universe in a way that older warriors were not, and he was curious about this human. Why does he not move? Thrax asked his partner, an older warrior named Vorn. Vorn made a dismissive sound with his mandibles. Who cares? He is prey. Prey does not matter. But look at him. He is not afraid. All the others were afraid. The Vethrani screamed when we put them in these cells. The Krix tried to fight. The Morvax begged for mercy. This human does nothing. He just sits there. He is too stupid to understand his situation, Vorn said. Humans are a primitive species. They probably do not even know what death is. Thrax was not sure he believed that. He had read the reports about humans. They were weak, yes. They had no natural weapons, yes. But they had spread across their entire world. They had built cities and machines. They had split the atom and walked on their moon. Stupid creatures did not do these things. He walked closer to the barrier and looked at Danny. The human looked back at him. Their eyes met through the red glow of the energy field. You are different from the others, Thrax said. He was not supposed to talk to prisoners, but he could not help himself. Why are you not afraid? Danny did not answer for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to the barrier. He was so much smaller than Thrax. His skin was so soft. His eyes had only one lens, not hundreds. He looked fragile. He looked breakable, but his voice was steady when he spoke. What is your name? Thrax was surprised by the question. I am Thrax. Thrax, Danny repeated. How many species have you conquered, Thrax? I have not conquered any. I am still young. But my people have conquered 47 species. 47, Danny said. That is a lot. And all of them were afraid of you? All of them. Tell me about them. Tell me what they were like. Thrax did not understand why the human wanted to know this, but he found himself answering anyway. The Vethrani were tall and thin. They had great cities and powerful ships. But when we came, they ran. They hid. We hunted them down one by one. And the others? The Krix were fighters. They had billions of soldiers. They thought they could defeat us with numbers. But numbers mean nothing against superior strength. We broke their armies in a single day. What about the Morvax? They were old. Very old. They had lived for millions of years. They thought their wisdom would save them. They tried to negotiate. They tried to make deals. In the end, they knelt like all the rest. Danny nodded slowly. So all of them either ran or fought or tried to talk their way out. Is that right? Yes. And what did you expect from us? From humans? Thrax thought about this. We expected you to fight. Your species has a reputation for violence. Your history is full of wars. We thought you would try to resist. And instead, we sent one man. Yes, it is very strange. Danny smiled. It was the same smile he had given Nizek in the landing zone. The same smile that made warriors feel cold without understanding why. Let me tell you something about my species, Thrax. Something that the reports probably did not mention. We are not like the others you have conquered. We do not run. We do not rely on numbers. And we do not beg for mercy. Then what do? We adapt. We learn. We change. Every enemy we have ever faced, we have studied them. We have found their weaknesses. We have become stronger because of them. That is how we survived on our world. That is how we will survive now. Thrax felt that cold feeling again. You talk as if you have already won. You are in a cell. You are going to die. Your world is going to burn. Is it? Danny asked. Are you sure about that? Before Thrax could answer, a loud alarm started to sound. The red lights in the hallway turned to bright yellow. Vorn grabbed his weapon and looked around in confusion. "What is happening?" Vorn shouted. A voice came over the communication system. It was Commander Veltrix, and he sounded angry. Very angry. "All warriors to battle stations. We have contacts in orbit. 7 contacts. They are not responding to our signals." Threx looked at Danny. The human was still smiling. "What did you do?" Threx demanded. "What is happening?" Danny walked back to the corner of his cell and sat down again. He crossed his legs and put his hands on his knees. He looked completely calm. He looked like a man who had been expecting exactly this. "I did not do anything," Danny said. "I just delivered a message. The rest is up to my people." The alarms kept screaming. Warriors ran past the cells, heading for their ships. The whole building shook as engines started to power up. Something was coming. Something big. Threx stared at the human in the cell. The weak, soft, breakable human who sat there smiling while the most powerful military in the galaxy prepared for battle. "What are you?" Threx whispered. Danny looked up at him, and for just a moment, Threx saw something in those simple human eyes. Something old. Something patient. Something that had been waiting for a very long time. "We are humanity," Danny said, "and we have been waiting for you to come and find us." The building shook again. In the distance, Threx could hear explosions. He turned and ran toward his battle station, leaving Danny alone in his cell. But as he ran, he could not shake the feeling that everything he knew about the universe was about to change. Commander Veltrix ran through the corridors of the palace like a storm made of anger and confusion. His forearms pushed aside anyone who got in his way. His clawed feet cracked the stone floor as he moved. He had conquered 47 worlds. He had never run from anything in his life. But right now, something was very wrong. He burst into the command center and found chaos. Warriors were shouting at each other. Screens were flashing with warnings. Officers were trying to make sense of data that made no sense at all. "Report," Veltrix roared. "What is happening in my sky?" Nizik turned from his station. His compound eyes were wide with something that looked almost like fear. That was impossible. Nizik did not fear anything. 7 vessels, Commander. They appeared from nowhere. They did not come through normal space. One moment the sky was empty. The next moment they were there. What kind of vessels? Nizik hesitated. That hesitation told Veltrix everything he needed to know. "Show me." Veltrix demanded. The main screen changed. It showed the space above Kethos Prime. The Zorvani fleet was there, 100 warships arranged in perfect formation. They were the finest ships in the Empire. Each one was a kilometer long. Each one carried weapons that could break continents, and floating among them were 7 human ships. Veltrix stared at the screen. His mandibles stopped moving. His 4 hands went still. For a long moment, he could not speak. The human ships were 3 kilometers long each. They were smooth and white, shaped like arrows pointing toward the stars. They had no visible weapons. They had no visible engines. They moved through space like ghosts, silent and perfect and utterly impossible. "This cannot be real," Veltrix said. The intelligence report said they had no interstellar capability. They said humans were still using chemical rockets. Primitive propulsion. They said humans were at least 1,000 years away from this level of technology. "The intelligence reports were wrong," Nizik replied. "Or they were lies." A new voice came over the communication system. It was clear and calm and spoke in perfect Zorvani language. "Commander Veltrix, this is Captain Katie Marsh of the Earth Defense Vessel Perseverance. You are holding one of our people. You have 1 hour to release him and withdraw from this system. Failure to comply will result in consequences you are not prepared to face. Veltrix felt his rage return. Who does this female think she is? 1 hour? I will destroy her ships in 1 minute. He turned to his weapons officer. Target the largest human vessel. Fire all primary batteries. The officer hesitated. Commander, our targeting systems are not working. Something is interfering with our sensors. We cannot get a lock on the human ships. Then fire manually. Fill the space with plasma. They cannot dodge everything. The order went out. 20 Zervani warships opened fire at once. Beams of superheated plasma shot across the void. Missiles screamed through the darkness. It was enough firepower to destroy a moon. The human ships did not move. The plasma beams stopped 10 meters from their hulls. They simply stopped, as if they had hit an invisible wall. The missiles exploded harmlessly in space, their warheads detonating far from their targets. Not a single shot touched the smooth white surface of the human vessels. The command center went silent. That is impossible, the weapons officer said. His voice was shaking. No shields are that strong. No technology can do that. On the largest human ship, Captain Katie Marsh watched the Zervani weapons fail. She stood on the bridge with her arms crossed, her face showing no emotion. She was 41 years old. She had gray at her temples and lines around her eyes. She had spent 20 years preparing for this moment. Next to her stood Lieutenant Commander Amy Torres, a young officer with dark hair and sharp eyes. Amy was watching the tactical display with interest. They used everything they had, Amy said. That was their full offensive capability against one target. And they did nothing. They were never going to do anything, Katie replied. Their technology is 1,000 years behind ours. They just do not know it yet. How long do we give them? We give them exactly what I said. 1 hour. If they release Danny and start withdrawing, we let them go. If they do not, we show them what real weapons look like. Amy nodded. Do you think they will be smart enough to surrender? Kay thought about this. She had studied the Zervani for years. She knew their history. She knew their culture. She knew their pride. No, she said finally. They will not be smart. They have never met anyone who could hurt them. They do not know how to back down. We will have to teach them. Back on Kethos Prime, Veltrix was trying to understand what had just happened. His best weapons had done nothing. His targeting systems were useless. His entire fleet was sitting in space like toys in front of the human vessels. Get the human prisoner, he ordered. Bring him to me now. If they want him so badly, I will use him as a bargaining chip. Nizik sent the order. 10 minutes later, Danny Cole was brought to the command center. He walked between 2 guards with the same calm expression he had shown since he first arrived. He looked at the screens showing the human ships. He looked at the Zervani commanders standing around him. He looked at Veltrix. I see my people have arrived, Danny said. Veltrix grabbed Danny by the throat and lifted him off the ground. What are those ships? What technology are you hiding? Tell me now, or I will crush your skull. Danny could barely breathe, but he still managed to speak. You could crush my skull. It would not change anything. Those ships are still there. More are coming. And every second you waste threatening me is a second you could be using to save your fleet. Save my fleet? I have 100 warships. You have 7. And our 7 stopped everything your 100 could throw at them. What does that tell you? Veltrix squeezed harder. Danny's face turned red. But the human did not beg. He did not cry out. He just looked at Veltrix with those calm, patient eyes. It tells me that you have been hiding, Veltrix said. It tells me that everything we knew about your species was a lie. It tells me that humans are not weak at all. Now you are starting to understand, Danny whispered. That is the message I came to deliver. We are not prey. We were never prey. We just wanted you to think we were." Veltrix threw Danny to the ground. The human coughed and gasped for air, but he did not look afraid. He looked satisfied. "Why?" Veltrix demanded. "Why pretend to be weak? Why hide your strength?" Danny got slowly to his feet. He rubbed his throat and took a deep breath. Then he looked at Veltrix and gave him an answer that the commander would never forget. "Because we wanted to see who you really were. We wanted to know if you were the kind of species that would help a weaker neighbor, or the kind that would enslave them. Now we know. And now we respond." The main screen flashed with a new warning. One of the human ships was moving forward. It was heading directly toward the Zervani flagship, and it was not slowing down. The Zervani flagship was called the Devourer of Worlds. It was the largest ship in their fleet. It was 2 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that could crack planets open like eggs. It had never been damaged in battle. It had never been threatened. But now, a human ship was flying straight toward it. In the command center on Kethos Prime, Veltrix watched the tactical display with growing alarm. The human vessel was not firing. It was not charging weapons. It was simply moving forward, smooth and silent, getting closer and closer to the Devourer of Worlds. "What are they doing?" Nizik asked. "Are they planning to ram us?" "I do not know," Veltrix replied. "Tell the Devourer to move out of the way. Tell all ships to scatter." The order went out. The Zervani fleet began to move, their massive engines pushing them away from the approaching human vessel. But the human ship changed direction too. It was not heading for the Devourer anymore. It was heading for a smaller warship that had tried to escape. The smaller ship fired everything it had. Plasma beams, missiles, kinetic projectiles. Nothing worked. The shots either missed or stopped dead in space before reaching the human vessel. Then the human ship fired back. A single beam of light shot from the front of the white vessel. It was thin and bright and lasted for only a second. When it stopped, the Zervani warship was gone. Not destroyed, not burning, simply gone, as if it had never existed. The command center on Kethos Prime went completely silent. Veltrix stared at the screen. Where there had been a ship carrying 3,000 warriors, there was now only empty space. No debris, no bodies, no trace that anything had ever been there. "What weapon is that?" Nizik whispered. His voice was shaking. "What did they just do?" Danny Cole was still standing in the command center. He had been watching the screen with a calm expression. Now he spoke, and his voice was quiet but clear. "That was a warning shot. They targeted your smallest combat vessel to show you what they can do. The next shot will be bigger." "A warning shot?" Veltrix turned on Danny with rage in his eyes. "They just killed 3,000 of my warriors. That is a warning? Your warriors died quickly. They felt no pain. That is more mercy than you have ever shown to any species you conquered." Veltrix raised his hand to strike Danny, but he stopped. Something was changing on the tactical display. The 6 remaining human ships were spreading out. They were taking positions around the Zervani fleet like wolves surrounding a flock of sheep. "Captain," Kitty Marsh spoke again over the communication system. "Commander Veltrix, you have 45 minutes remaining. Release our man. Begin your withdrawal. This is your only warning." Veltrix's mind was racing. He was a warrior. He had never surrendered. He had never even considered surrender. But he was also intelligent enough to recognize when a battle could not be won. 100 Zervani warships against 7 human vessels. And the humans had just destroyed one of his ships with a single shot. If they chose to fire again, they could destroy his entire fleet in minutes. What do they want? Veltrix asked Danny, "What does your species want from us?" "We want you to leave," Danny replied. "That is all. Go back to your space. Stay there. Leave the species of this region alone. Do these things and you will survive. And if we refuse?" Danny looked at the screen showing the human ships. He looked at the empty space where a Zorvani warship had been. Then he looked back at Veltrix. "Then you will learn what humans do to those who threaten our home." On the bridge of the Perseverance, Katie Marsh was watching the Zorvani fleet. She could see their ships clustering together. She could see their weapons charging and then shutting down. She could see the confusion in their movements. "They are thinking about fighting," Amy Torres said. "Some of their captains want to attack." "Let them think," Katie replied. "They will come to the right conclusion. And if they do not?" Katie did not answer for a moment. She had been trained for this. She had been preparing for first contact with a hostile species for her entire career. She knew what was at stake. She knew what would happen if the Zorvani chose to fight. "Then we do what we have to do," she said finally. "We end them. All of them. All of them. Every ship. Every warrior. We cannot afford to show weakness. We cannot afford to let them think humans can be defeated. If we hesitate, if we show mercy when mercy is not earned, other species will see it. They will think we are soft. They will try what the Zorvani tried. We have to make an example." Amy nodded slowly. She understood. It was not cruelty. It was survival. Humanity had spent centuries hiding their true capabilities, watching the galaxy, learning about the powers that controlled the stars. They knew that weakness invited attack. They knew that kindness was often seen as vulnerability. So they had prepared. They had built ships that could cross the galaxy in moments. They had developed weapons that could unmake matter at the atomic level. They had trained soldiers who could face any enemy without fear. And now, they would show the universe what humanity had become. On Kethos Prime, Veltrix was receiving reports from his captains. Some wanted to fight. They said the Zorvani could not surrender to a species they had planned to conquer. They said it would make them look weak. They said other conquered species would rebel if they heard the Zorvani had backed down. Other captains wanted to retreat. They said the battle was already lost. They said one shot from the humans had destroyed a ship. They said staying meant dying. Veltrix listened to all of them. Then he looked at Danny Cole. "Your people could have attacked us first," Veltrix said. "When we entered your space, you could have destroyed our scout ships. You could have sent a message that humans were not to be touched. Why did you not do this?" Danny answered without hesitation. "Because we wanted to give you a chance to be better. We have watched many species in this galaxy. Most of them conquer because they are afraid. They think that if they do not control others, others will control them. We wanted to see if you would choose peace when you thought we were weak. You did not. But we are still giving you another chance now. Why? Why do you keep giving us chances? Because that is who we are. We fight when we have to. We destroy when we must. But we always hope that we will not have to. We always hope that the next species we meet will choose peace." Veltrix was silent for a long moment. The clock on the screen showed 30 minutes remaining. He had to make a choice. The command center was quiet. Every warrior, every officer, every guard was looking at Commander Veltrix. They were waiting for his decision. Fight or retreat. Victory or survival. Pride or wisdom. Veltrix stood in the center of the room with his forearms hanging at his sides. He had led the Zorvani for 300 years. He had won every battle he had ever fought. He had never known defeat. He had never tasted failure, but he had also never faced an enemy like this. He looked at the tactical display. The 6 human ships were still in position around his fleet. They had not fired again. They were waiting, just like their soldier on the ground had waited, calm, patient, confident. "Nizik," Beltrix said. "Contact the captains. Tell them we are withdrawing." Nizak's mandibles stopped clicking. "Commander?" "You heard me. We are leaving this system. We are leaving this region of space. Tell the fleet to power down weapons and prepare for departure." "But Commander, our honor, our reputation. The other conquered species will hear of this, and they will hear that we faced a species of hidden predators and chose survival over extinction," Beltrix interrupted. "They will hear that the Zorvani are wise enough to recognize when they are outmatched. And they will hear that we live to fight another day." He turned to Danny Cole. The human was still standing there, small and soft and utterly unafraid. "You win this day, human," Beltrix said. "But this is not over. We will learn your secrets. We will find your weaknesses. And when we return, we will be ready for you." Danny shook his head slowly. "No, you will not. You will not return because you are smart enough to know what will happen if you do. And in time, you will realize that we never wanted to be your enemies. We wanted to be your neighbors. That offer is still open if you ever choose to accept it." Beltrix stared at Danny for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Neighbors. You destroy one of my ships, humiliate my fleet, and then offer to be neighbors. Humans are a very strange species." "We are a hopeful species," Danny replied. "We always believe that tomorrow can be better than today, even when the evidence suggests otherwise." A shuttle was called to take Danny back to the human fleet. As he walked toward the landing zone, Threx appeared beside him. The young warrior walked in silence for a few steps before speaking. "I do not understand your species," Threx said. "You could have destroyed us all. Why did you not?" "Because that is not who we want to be," Danny answered. "We have done terrible things in our history. We have fought wars that killed millions. We have made weapons that could end all life on our world. We know what we are capable of. And that is exactly why we try so hard to be better. But we would have enslaved your people. We would have burned your cities. Yes, and if you had tried, we would have stopped you. But you did not get that far. You made a mistake, and we gave you a chance to fix it. That is all we can do. Offer the chance. What you do with it is up to you." They reached the landing zone. A human shuttle was waiting, sleek and white, silent and powerful. Danny stopped at the edge of the ramp and turned to look at Threx one more time. "You are young," Danny said. "You will live for a long time. Use that time to think about what happened here today. Think about what your people have done to others. Think about what kind of future you want. Maybe, when you are older, you will remember this conversation. Maybe you will be the one who changes things." Threx did not know what to say. He just stood there as Danny walked up the ramp and disappeared into the shuttle. The shuttle lifted off and flew toward the stars. On the bridge of the Perseverance, Katie Marsh watched it approach. "Is he okay?" she asked when the shuttle docked and Danny came onto the bridge. "I am fine," Danny said. He looked tired but satisfied. "They are leaving. We did it." Amy Torres was monitoring the tactical display. "The Zorvani fleet is powering down weapons. They are changing course, heading back the way they came." Katie nodded. "Good. Keep watching them until they leave the system. Then we can go home." "Home," Danny repeated. "That sounds nice. I could use a shower and a meal that was not a nutrition bar." Katie smiled. It was the first time she had smiled in days. "You did good work down there, Danny. You stayed calm when anyone else would have panicked. You kept them talking until we could arrive. The Council will want to thank you personally. I did not do anything special. I just delivered the message. The message was the most important part. We needed them to understand that we were giving them a choice, that we were not monsters, that we did not want to wipe them out. You made them see that. Danny walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Zervani fleet was retreating. Somewhere out there, Threx was thinking about what he had learned. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was watching to see what humanity would do next. Do you think they will come back? Danny asked. Maybe, Katie replied. Not soon. But maybe someday? When they think they are ready. And what will we do then? The same thing we always do. We will give them a chance. And if they do not take it, we will do what we have to. Danny nodded. He understood. Humanity had hidden in the shadows for a long time. They had watched the galaxy with careful eyes. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had seen species enslave each other. They had seen cruelty and conquest and pain. And they had decided that when they finally stepped into the light, they would be different. They would be strong enough to protect themselves. They would be wise enough to seek peace. And they would be brave enough to offer mercy even to those who did not deserve it. We are not perfect, Danny said quietly. We have made so many mistakes. We have hurt each other in so many ways. But we keep trying to be better. Is that enough? Katie put her hand on his shoulder. It has to be. It is all any of us can do. The Perseverance turned toward Earth. The stars stretched as the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel. Behind them, the Zorwani fleet continued its slow retreat. And on Kethos Prime, in the palace that had once belonged to a conquered species, young Threx stood alone in the landing zone. He looked up at the sky where the human ships had disappeared. He thought about what Danny had said. He thought about the future. For the first time in his life, he wondered if there was a better way to live. For the first time, he wondered if his people had been wrong. It was just a thought. A small seed planted in young soil. But sometimes, that is how change begins.